speakers. Um, and really, the idea here is I think it'll become obvious what my background is. I come from an arts background. So I can genuinely say that prior to teaching in the pre-apprenticeship program, I didn't really anticipate that that is what I would be doing. So I did experience quite a bit of anxiety when I was first approached with the prospect of teaching communications in a pre-apprenticeship program. And just to make clear, that is where I'm coming from. I teach at George Brown. Usually I'm teaching in the academic upgrading department. And as part of that, from time to time, I've been asked to teach pre-apprenticeship courses. So these are like kind of getting people up to speed who maybe haven't been in school for a while, who do need the credentialing, but this is actually even prior to the communications work that they would do within the apprenticeship program. So it's been a ride, let me tell you. I've over the 8 years that I've been teaching at George Brown, I've taught probably about seven different trade groups, multiple times for some, and I've absolutely loved it. It's been amazing. And I want to talk about why that is and some of the things that I've learned doing it. So some of this is a narrative, a pilgrim's progress, if you will, through teaching in the trades. Um, when I was first, not even hired, but when I was first being considered to teach in the academic upgrading department, I was asked if I would like to teach a pre-apprenticeship course for refrigeration and air conditioning technicians. They might as well ask, would you like to teach astronauts? Is that something you'd like to do? Maybe cosmonauts? Would you be up for that? It was totally out of my frame of reference. I had no idea. Um, I wish I could say that my manager stepped in with volumes and volumes of helpful curricular material, but that was not the case. I will touch on some of the things that I was given, but for the most part, it was up to me to figure this out. I should also add, not only did they ask if I could teach this comms class, this pre-apprenticeship comms class, they said, oh, they also want you to cover science and computers. Uh, and I was so new, I didn't push back. I was like, okay, I guess. It's like, yeah, they need basics. Are you comfortable? They need basics in chemistry, physics, things like that. Just kind of get them, feeling good about that, and also computer skills. And this was like a 10-week course. So I had no curriculum and I had a rather large ask being asked of me. So I said yes without really knowing what I was getting into. Um, and let's just say I felt pretty good about the communication stuff, but very rocky with the science stuff. And I had a student comment to me. He was like, you really, you really had us. We were pretty amazed when you started teaching us science. It's like you were our English teacher and then you became our science teacher. Suffice it to say, it went about as well as you'd think it would go. Fortunately or unfortunately, there was a guy in the class who was about 3 credits away from completing an electrical engineering class degree at University of Toronto, and he dropped out. So after every class where I was attempting to teach science, he would give me a mini tutorial about what I got wrong, how maybe I want to teach this tomorrow, and it was extremely helpful. It was great. It was on the fly education. I couldn't have asked for a better teacher. So this is just to say, extremely, jumped into the deep end for teaching in the pre-apprenticeship program. And one of the things I will never forget is the one of the best hugs that I ever got in my life. And what that was about 6 months after I finished teaching this class. My partner's son and I went to a Cirque du Soleil show at Air Canada Center. And just so happened there was a former student of mine in that class who was working security. He saw me, he shouted my name. We came together and he gave me a bear hug. And it was so gratifying. I can't tell you. First of all, I was so happy that my partner and my son could see this, connection because I had talked a lot about it. But for me, it was an affirmation that despite all of my doubts and being in over my head, I had somehow gotten through. The connection was real. And we had a good laugh about a lot of the stuff that happened in the class, but it was so meaningful to me. And I guess I start with that because I want to say that I have found, this could just be my experience, but I have found teaching in these apprenticeship programs to be really among the most gratifying teaching that I've done. Um, it goes from the students that are coming into the class, the specificity of what they're looking for, the opportunity for learning on my part, and how highly motivated these learners generally are. Obviously, there are exceptions, but in general, I have found them to be very eager to learn, very receptive to the material. So, if you are in a position where you are asked to take on teaching the apprenticeship program, I hope you say yes. And I hope that you can benefit a bit from my experience. These are the lessons that I've learned that I want to share with you today. Um, again, I've taught many courses, many different kinds of courses, and I'll refer to the different ones that I've taught, but I am trying to kind of extract the most significant learning that I've had on this journey. So hardwired for learning. What I mean by that is I think you have to take a bit of a worker's perspective when you're putting together the curriculum. You don't need to be an expert, but you shouldn't kid yourself as to what your learners are looking for when they come to your classroom. I think the quickest way to create buy-in is to show that your teaching is designed for people who are about to enter the workplace. If you can, if you can make it even more specific to the very trade that they're thinking about going into, they're getting ready to go into, that's great. So, what that means in terms of preparation is find materials that relate to this career. That sounds obvious. It's a bit harder to actually do. Um, I ended up leaning quite heavily on um, YouTube, union publications, and a lot of health and safety information. It was interesting hearing Patricia talk about that because I do think those are great materials to create lessons around. Not only because almost every trade involves safety equipment and possible hazards. I took an attitude of a learner as I was putting together materials. What would I want to know? What would I be worried about? But mainly, what voices would I be wanting to hear from? So throughout, I would look for materials that were developed by people in the trades, former apprentices, huge, union stewards, and employers. I thought were the people to really put the learners in contact with. Right. So some examples. We've already heard a mention about a skill plan. They do have a number of teaching specific materials that can be very helpful. In the background there is an example, is the web page from the Canadian Center for Occupational Health and Safety. They are a repository for all kinds of safety related information, including material safety data sheets, which list out all of the different dangers of specific chemicals and even um, work procedures. So, very helpful, very relevant to the trades. So, yes, not your everyday reading, not something you're typically going out on the internet looking for, but it's fun, actually. You can learn about a new trade, and I find that fascinating. It gives me a clearer point of contact with my students, and I start asking questions, genuine questions that I think my learners would have as well. Lesson number two. Nope, not a wheelwright. Patricia mentioned this as well. Just because you're teaching, um, mechanical, what am I thinking of? Industrial millwrighting, you are not a millwright. So don't reinvent the wheel. That's the little pun there. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are people who have taught these courses before, people within the trade that want to share information in a user-friendly way. So dive in, take a look at those. One, you're going to learn the key phrases, skills, techniques, concerns of a given trade. And then you will also start to get some ideas about how to present this information in a logical way. So, yeah, take a look at the relevant ministry, what they've put out on the internet. Again, the labor unions, any trade organizations, they often will provide lesson plans. That's part of what they put out there. So don't reinvent that wheel. Learn everything you can about making a wheel because it's fascinating, but only in the interest of helping folks who will be making wheels learn. So here again are some examples of resources. Skills for Success, the one on the left there, um, I, I have found very helpful. In fact, a team of teachers at George Brown, we were tasked with developing curriculum for 3 or 4 classes, and we ended up using a lot of the skills for success suggestions, not taking whole hog what they were doing, but we definitely based a lot of our lesson planning on what they had. And as you can see, it's visually pleasing. They've they've done work to make it look more I don't know, more approachable. And then on the right is I think a great resource for teaching. It's the Red Seal website. So, as I think most people know, there are what are called regulated trades, where in order to be fully qualified in that trade, you need to pass a very challenging examination. Plumbers, electricians, millwrights, the list goes on, are required to take this test. Not right away, they have years to prepare for it, but it can be a real challenge. So um, I used this Red Seal site as an example of authentic reading. I asked the students to summarize various sections of the Red Seal website because it contained important information about becoming fully licensed. So I thought that's relevant. They're going to want to know how to become fully licensed. And sure enough, it ended up being a really fruitful exercise for people. So it's dry, it's not exciting stuff, but lots of opportunity for literacy training, um, doing summaries, developing questions. I had students, based on their reading of the Red Seal documents, create little study guides for each other, which I think went quite well. It was a successful exercise. So I offer this in the spirit of brainstorming. Here are some ways that you can create relevant curriculum um, for your students without you necessarily needing to know all of the jargon and all of the information. Lesson number 3. This is where my arts training uh, reveals itself. Fake it till you make it. I think of the pre-apprenticeship program, and I would think of the apprenticeship program this way too, as a great place to practice what it is you are going to be learning. Provide a safe environment and a fun environment for students to experiment with the ideas and even the persona of the kind of worker that they are hoping to become. So I like to set up situations, excuse me, where the students are they're put into a spot where they need to basically inhabit a persona of an employer, a supervisor, a customer, um, a, an intern, whatever. I put them in those situations as a communications exercise. How does your standing in the company affect how you write emails? What is appropriate to ask of an employee? How do you say no politely and without hurting your employment chances? Things like that. So, what I did to set up these exercises, something I want to put out there to folks, is contact people in the trades. I have found people are really, I almost say honored to be asked to share their experience with you of a given trade. So I had interviews when I was getting ready to teach refrigeration and air conditioning. I spoke to a couple of technicians in the field. Same with mill writing, actually, with pretty much all of them. I've reached out to somebody to have a one-on-one conversation where I ask them about what are common workplace scenarios for you? What does a typical day in the life of a millwright look like? And we have really wide-ranging conversations. Often I'll ask them, would they be willing to come into the class to present? Often I get a yes if they're not too busy. But this is a great source for preparing my students, preparing my lessons beforehand. And again, making use of lesson plans online is a great idea. And then also your imagination. What you think might be a fun activity, team building exercise that puts people in the world in a practice scenario. So this here is an example of something that I did for mainly for the millwrights. I called it Dragon's Tank. I think most people will know what this is about. You're basically put in on a team that comes up with an invention, and you present it to the rest of the class, seeking funding for your invention. So we have a lot of fun with it. It's a reality show kind of experience, but they get together, they think about what's a needed invention, whether it's an actual hands-on tool or it could be a website, whatever, and then they pitch it. They have to create a pitch document, a PowerPoint presentation, and they each have to speak. They are every person has responsibility for presenting to the rest of the class. And then at the end, everybody votes on which inventions they would fund. Lots of interesting inventions have come out of this, but the greatest thing to come out of it is camaraderie, a real kind of excitement day to day about putting together their presentation. And we get into really kind of interesting conversations about, for example, one that's coming to mind right now. What's the difference between a sales pitch and a lie? We had a really good talk about that because I was saying you have to make your presentations persuasive. And I was giving some examples. And the students started pushing back. And they're like, but that's not true. You're presenting a false image of something. So we had really great talks about how do you walk that line, right? Between selling something and just out and out lying about it. But for me, that's gold. Those kinds of discussions, getting them to think inside and around their words. So that is a project that went on for like 2 weeks in my class, and there's tremendous excitement that was created by it. A lot of fun. My last bit of learning that I want to share with you is the most powerful possible tool that they will come across in their apprenticeship training, and that is each other, the person next to them. I, not just my opinion, lots of research shows that an essential ingredient for academic success is one's network. Your peer network can broaden and increase your chances for success. So I take it as a given that one of my jobs as a communications professor is to create connections in the classroom. I find my way of doing that, the richest way of doing that is through role play, teamwork, group projects. But I mean, I have also actually done drama games with classes. In fact, I did drama games with that refrigeration and air conditioning group, and they were incredible. Um, but at the end of the day, the lasting connections that are made in that classroom, I believe, are the greatest benefit that I can give them because they can lean on each other. They can reach out and hear what everyone else is doing. I I use Teams when I teach, and I have a Teams group of a class that is now 2 years old that is active still. The students still use it to connect with each other about their apprenticeship experiences. From, who's got a job placement? What's going on? Have you guys had to deal with this training yet? How do I get in touch with so and so? Amazing. So I really do feel that that's my one of my the greatest services that I can provide. And then also using my classroom as a forum to connect them with people in the industry, union folks, again, people who went through the apprenticeship program before, people who are hiring in this sector, counselors, things like that. Bring in people who have lots of relevant information for them. So this is funny. This is one of the examples of um, I should say, I'll go back because I don't want you to be distracted. I would say another example of an exercise that was quite successful was I put the class into groups and I had them um, put themselves in the position of hiring an apprentice. So they had to think about what kind of apprentice would work well in their company, what kind of leadership style they have in their company. Had them think about that a lot, and then put them through exercises where they were either the leaders of this company or they were the apprentice in their company. So we would switch back and forth. Um, I have to say, this just felt like the most comfortable fit for them and for me. It was a great way to cover the communication stuff that I wanted to teach. So this slide is one of the first group building exercises I used. It's a riddle. They have to figure out. Their apprentice that they're hiring is called Narnia, Narnjaa. And I just give them this sheet, and it says, read the text below for instructions on how to move on to step two. And they're put into breakout rooms, and I wait to hear from them. I don't know if it's might be too small on your screen to see. Um, I'll stop here for a moment to see if anybody can figure out the riddle. Are you able to read it?
Can you
It's,
make it a little larger?
I can try. Let's see. There's a little magnifying glass. Oh, too big. Is that better?
Bit more?
Okay, here, I'm going to bring it to the middle.
Right.
So this is all they were given, and they had to figure out the riddle.
If you think you know what the riddle is, you can put it in the chat or verbalize it.
Yeah, yeah, either way. Jasmine seems to think that they know. Go ahead, Jasmine.
Okay, is it the group in front of you, your team?
No, but good guess.
Okay.
So, Judy, you got it? What do you think the answer is?
Oh,
Um,
Kel, yeah,
can I say it? The
yep.
answer is found in the first letter of every line.
Thank you. Yes. Ask the prof who is Narnia. That's what the whole thing says. So you take the first letter and look at it. And, as is always the case with a riddle, some people get it within 10 seconds. Others, I had to keep giving them hints. Let's look at it a different way. Try something you would never do ordinarily, whatever. But great team building exercise. Um, and it sort of sets up this idea that you need to bring in all different perspectives to a task. So yeah, good job. Well done. All right, so that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you. Like I said, my bias is obvious. I'm someone who's quite comfortable using role play and group work, things like that. Not everyone is that comfortable with it, but I do want to say that when you are tasked with teaching in an area that you're not that comfortable with, I think your greatest resource, and I say this for everyone, is your students. You don't have to be the center of it all. You don't have to be the font of all wisdom and knowledge in this area. You can activate your learners. And I think my way in with that has always been through kind of fun activities where they're asked to step out of their own shell. That's how I do it. There are many other ways to do it, as we all know. But that would be the capstone or the keystone in my presentation is making that connection with your students, putting your students uh, in the driver's seat, so to speak. Get them thinking inside these skills and these settings and unleashing their imaginations and their energy because Lord knows they have a lot more than you do. There's more of them than there are of you, so make use of it. So yeah, that's it. I'm so happy that I was asked to do this. Thank you very much to share what I've learned. I hope it was of some use. I hope it's not so idiosyncratic that you don't feel it applies to you. Um, and I'm happy to respond to any questions later on if there are. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Phil, for the great examples. Yeah, and a very learner-centered, right? They're all part of it and they're informing what goes on, what comes out, what's the results. So, yeah, great curriculum development for pre-apprenticeships. And we will have those questions if you have any during our Q&A. So thank you, Phil.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
We're actually back to our original timeline. So we have Colin, and Colin is our next presenter. And Colin is going to, uh, with a pun on word, if I can say these are his words, Colin's presentations take the num out of numbers. So a little bit of a shift focus. It's going to be more on numeracy. He'll explore the ways to introduce and encourage and intrigue students with numeracy and to connect that numeracy to other areas such as financial literacy within the realm of the trades. So welcome, Colin.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen here, I hope. And it should be coming up. Is it on the screen?
Yes.
And
Yes,
can
it is.
everybody see it and read it okay?
If you can do slightly bigger, Colin.
Is that better?
When you're going to do the slideshow,
Yes.
it'll become bigger, Colin, I think.
Perfect.
Okay, let's try. It will. I'm just getting the slideshow. Is it coming up? What I lose is
Yes, it is.
the
Yes.
ability to see anybody that puts up a question. So maybe Georgina, if you find a question in there, you could read it to me.
Yes.
I would appreciate that. Thank you, or Phil. Um, I will go relatively slowly for our ASL interpreters. I have taught with Phil in some of the pre-apprentice programs at George Brown in academic upgrading as well. My background is a combination of teaching and textbook publishing, believe it or not. I was the math publisher for Nelson for a number of years. Saw a number of boards coming up. You may have heard of Nelson in previous years. I did some teaching at academic upgrading at George Brown for a few years. I've now left that at the beginning of the year, and I am the director of publishing for a small publishing house called Classroom Ready. And what I want to do today, just a little bit here, is say, when I got back into teaching and I was teaching academic upgrading, taught at Casaloma in the HVAC program, some in pre-apprenticeship, some in the academic upgrading as well. There were three real areas as a math teacher that I had to really get a focus on and kind of lean on and get through. And I'd like to share those with you today. A little bit of background on me as well as that as a failing math student who grew up in Niagara Falls, when I failed grade 7 math and I failed grade 8 math, and I worked in at Stelco uh, for a while as a general laborer as well. I bring a little bit of a different kind of background to this, and I never shy away from that. I always share it with my students. On day one, that I am a struggling math student. The students tend to come in, and they are one of these three types of students. Yeah, and I'll read it for the ASL interpreters, but 40% of students believe that their math intelligence is more or less fixed, that you either can do math or you can't. Okay? 40% of students believe they can learn the math and that their intelligence of math understanding will continue to grow. 20% of the students kind of waver between the two. And this is research that is built on two Stanford researchers from California, Jo Boaler and Carol Dweck, who are doing a lot of research on this. When I think of myself and I think of my students, I tend to believe that this is true. One of the things that I'll ask them, and I don't want to see this, so maybe I'll ask you guys the same thing too. What type of math learner were you or are you? Maybe just take a minute if you can and just maybe record it for yourself. And I'll give the ASL interpreters a chance to take a bit of a breath here. But what type of math learner are you? Do you believe you can do math or you can't? You can learn the math. You kind of waver sometimes between the two. Let's give you a minute here to write that down for yourself. We get a clock out here so you can see what I'm doing here. Feel free to put it up in the chat if you like, or just keep it for yourself for later. Right? I know some chats are coming up. See, one of the things that I have to get through too when I do math uh, is Some students come in and think math is just a four-letter word. I personally think it's the second cleanest four-letter word in the world. Everybody got something there? One of the things that I look at for myself here is that I think I tended to believe I was in that first category. I can either do it or I can't do it. Took me a long time to get to learn and understand for myself that I can learn math. I can make those connections for myself. Maybe not at the beginning here. Maybe not when I first started. And Georgina, I see things are coming up. There's a dozen chats. I just can't read them. Is there anything there? Any questions there?
No questions yet, just their indication of what type of
Okay.
learner they are.
I can't wait to see it when I get off the screen. But I
It's
tended
kind of
to,
a toss-up between, yeah, pretty much half and half between the first and second.
right, yeah, and you can see even the data that Carol Dweck and Jo Boaler have come out with said it's pretty much an even split on that. I know where I was. You can either do it or you can't. And I wouldn't want to bear down and do it. And what I found was for myself that my weakness in students, and I see this now, there's a bunch of weakness, but a part that I have to build up for students is their numeracy skills. If they don't have the numeracy skills, they don't have the number skills. Anything else after that really had difficulty falling into place. I couldn't do things like surface area or volume if they didn't have the numeracy skills. Couldn't do algebra if they didn't have the numeracy skills. So when I look at the academic upgrading and I look at students that are in the pre-apprentice going into an apprenticeship program, really wanted to help try and build and encourage their numeracy skills. One of the ways that I would do that, and I do that right off the bat, and I like to see where their numeracy skills are, is to really give them a question like this one and say, can you answer that? Again, maybe I'll give you a minute here and say, give it a shot for yourselves, folks. Can you do this question? Let's give 1 minute here. I'll give them time. See if you get an answer. Again, you can put it up in the chat or keep it to yourself. Entirely up to you. I'll give another 20 seconds here. So just with time restraints. I'll show the correct answer too, but I'll show an answer that at the beginning, a lot of students give me. Okay, you're probably looking at this and saying, oh, order of operations, and I've got bed mass and those kind of things going on, or PEMDAS, or whatever that an acronym happened to be. But here is a solution that I would always, often get, I don't say always get, I often get from my students. And I'll ask the question here. Is this answer correct? Hey, did I pick on the correct one? or did I go after the incorrect one, an incorrect one here? Okay, when I look at this. I'm just asking the question. I'll give you a minute just to look at it. Is it correct?
For those that are linear, yes, they're linear thinking.
I tend to think in pictures. That helps. Well, very, very rare. I've discovered that over the years. In pictures, about 10% of the population thinks pictures. And I've picked this question on purpose if you want to write it down and use it with your students. Feel free. This is just a question, but it has been chosen on purpose because I think the correct answer to this is not the correct answer. The correct answer, I'm not seeing what anybody's putting up in the chat. I see about 40 new responses have gone in since we started here. This is not the correct answer. I think the correct answer is 20. This one is 2. But it does 2 things for them. Number one, how many students actually see what the order of operations is and can correctly use it? If I've got the vast majority of my class that can do that, I'm going to move on. If they can't, I'm going to take some steps back and say, let's work on some of the numeracy skills. Let's work on what the order of operations is, because you get into the trades, you're going to have to be doing calculations pretty quickly. When I worked at Stelco, I'd do calculations pretty quickly, even if I was just doing general labor. People were right on pipe. It was a well and tubes plant. It was pipe. People were right on pipe, but they would be doing calculations pretty quickly. Second part of this one, the answer is 20. This answer is 2. I'm looking to see body language and see how many students here say are starting to question themselves. Are they confident in what they know? And I want somebody, when you get out onto that floor, you get out into the plant, you want to have your confidence. You want to have confidence in your abilities here. And it's only off by a 0. 2 versus 20. People tend to look at it. Have I got it right? And those that have got it right want to look at this and say, where did the error actually occur? Okay, let me just show you the two here, the correct solution and the incorrect solution, or where the errors actually occurred in the one on the left to get me to 2. Okay, it's giving me all kinds of information here. One question gives me information about students in front of me, especially when it's early on. And I know I want to have them have them with good numeracy skills leaving me, going into the trades. I want them to be confident going in. So everything kind of just relies on the uh, uh, the need to have those good numeracy skills. And when students start to struggle, I can usually trace it back in math to where have they fallen behind on is in the numeracy skills. Now, in this one on the left, they haven't followed the order of operations correctly. There's 24 minus 18 is 6, whereas they needed to do the material in the brackets, the calculation in the bracket first, like had happened on the right-hand side. Instead of doing the subtraction, they needed to do the 4 minus 1. Okay, and the one that I highlighted, I think in green, I'm not great with colors here, and the 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down on the left, 6 divided by 6 minus 1. Even students that know exponents, for whatever reason, again, I picked this on purpose. 3 to the exponent 2 is 3 times 3, which is 9. So many students look at that and say it's 3 times 2, which is 6. With these numeracy skills, the numbers that they need to work with the numeracy they need to work with, just trying to point out some of these common errors and common places that students will start to fall down a little bit. They say, this gives me information. This gives me information to see how much do I need to do with the order of operations? How basic are the numeracy skills that I need my students to have? Where are they now? Far backwards might I need to go in order to start moving forward and get to questions like this, if not further? It's never as far back as I think it should be, but I always want to try and make sure that I know that. The other part to this too, the other part to this too, is that I'm doing what is called an error analysis. And for me personally, one of the most powerful tools that I found, especially with students going into the trades that are upgrading to go into the trades, is to get them to look at something that they did not do and try and find the error in it. So many students, when they're in that first category, like I was, you can either do it or you can't do it. You can't make mistakes. You're not allowed to make mistakes in math. And that to me is one of the biggest myths that I've run into when it comes to mathematics and teaching mathematics and learning mathematics. That students come in with, I can't make mistakes. I'm not allowed to make mistakes. You got to get the right answer all the time. And research like Carol Dweck, like Jo Boaler are doing in California, is actually saying that's not true, especially when it comes to learning math. That is not true. Okay, research is showing that errors in math actually make the mind grow. Believe it or not, that's happening. It makes your brain grow, makes your mind grow. You start growing and you start getting comfortable with doing the math. Okay, it's exciting. I think it's exciting. I make mistakes all the time. When I was teaching, I'd make mistakes all the time, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not. And I'd be the first one to say, whoops. Or I'd say, hey, where are we going wrong in here? That's not what I should be getting. Where did it go wrong? Have them look at my errors and do an error analysis. Some of the most famous people in the world have struggled, made errors. And anybody asks me whenever it comes to this, I'm just going to get off this screen here. What I was saying here just now, but some of the most famous people in the world have struggled, have known what it's like not to be successful the first time. Okay, and I always like to I could give my students a few examples of these kinds of people. Okay, and they're famous. Okay, Walt Disney, before he was Walt Disney, was fired from a newspaper for lack of imagination. The creator, Mickey Mouse, and all those cartoons and the wonderful world of Disney, and it just was fired for lack of imagination. Hard to understand sometimes, but it is in fact true. Whoops, I went the wrong way. Sorry, the wrong button. Michael Jordan, most people know this, was cut from his high school basketball team. Maybe the most famous player of all time. Didn't give up. He didn't give up. To encourage my students, don't give up on the math here. Okay, things will happen. It will make you better. It will help your brain grow. It will help. Guaranteed it will help. And if they want even a more modern one, me being in publishing, I like this one. Okay, having been in publishing for quite a long time, I realize it's math and uh, reading comprehension publishing that I've mostly been in over the years. But even right now, Joanne Rowling, when she was trying to shop her manuscript around of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, was rejected by 12 different publishers before, there's two parts to this, before Bloomsbury Publishing House picked it up and did it. And her publisher said, when they picked it up and they said, You will never make money publishing children's stories. You've made over $1 billion in royalty checks, but you will never make money publishing children's stories. Please, can't give up. Students can't give up. None of these people gave up. There's hundreds of others, but these are just three that that I mention here. Right? Three very famous people. I'd say it's J.K. Rowling, Joanne Rowling. There's no K. She doesn't have a middle name. Just she used J.K. Rowling because it sounds good. Okay. Folks, feel free to put questions in the chat here. Really, I'm trying to measure the students' numeracy skills very early on and try and build the fact that it's okay to make mistakes. And especially in math, it's okay to make mistakes. Georgine, I'll just ask, are there any questions in the chat that I should be? I've seen about 40 things come up.
There's no questions, Colin. The only thing that has come up is that I don't know if you're going to address it, that teacher instruction is quite important to the learning process. That's come up as a theme.
Teacher instruction?
Yeah, the math instruction itself,
Yes.
not knowing, the bed math, then having a good teacher instruct to the different learning styles. I know it's not there, but I get
Yep.
that all the time, to all learning styles.
Right. And maybe I'll just take a step back and say there are various learning styles that I tend to use on this. Now, if you have things like manipulatives in your classroom, they are fabulous things. Algebra tiles, Cuisinart rods. They're actually fabulous for getting kids that are very tactile, and a lot of these kinds of students that are going into the trades are tactile to move things around when you're doing some of the math instruction. Don't just write it on the board. Okay, you'll get some students that'll be able to follow it and step by step by step. But if you can take, a long strip and say this represents X, for example, when you're solving an equation, and you've got 3 squares equals 5 squares on the other side, and try and make it a balance on this. Keep it tactile if you can. Okay, always like to try and keep it tactile. So when it comes to learning math, see other comments coming up. When it comes to learning math, I tend to like, especially if I've got students that are that I've got time with, is to try it from a hands-on manipulative base first. Okay, then try getting them to draw pictures of the manipulatives. Well, they're not just using manipulatives or trying just moving things around to do questions. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit here, but if I'm doing integers, for example, and I want to know what -5 plus -3 is, if I've got 5 red tiles that represent, each one represents -1, I add to that 3 red tiles to represent -3. How many have I got left? I've got 8 red ones, which helps me represent -8. Okay, I can move those around and I can see it, and I can physically see it on my desk, on a piece of paper, on a screen, can physically see it. Step one. Step two, I might have them just draw it, not give them the tiles. Can I draw these kinds of things to see it? And then step three, can I represent that symbolically? Okay, so I've got some visuals in my head as to what's going on. So instead of drawing, I can draw 5 red tiles for -5, 3 red tiles for -3, and see how many there are. Gives me -8. Okay, I'm suddenly working with these things just by moving things around, but eventually I've got to write it down on a piece of paper and represent it symbolically. So for me, when I like to go, when I'm teaching and introducing new math topics, is can I go from the concrete into some sort of picture representation to finally a symbolic representation. I hope there I'm answering the question, even if it's briefly.
Colin, can you clarify what a Cuisinart is?
Cuisinart rods are things like fractions. They represent fractions. So they're long strips, and they would come in. Let me see if I can. You know what? I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to try and bring up a blank screen. Okay. Oh, I might go somewhere else. Okay, so where I can't get at the thing.
You want to do a whiteboard, Colin?
I was trying to do a whiteboard here. Yes. My screen has gotten too big, I think. Uh-huh. Okay. Let's see if I can. No, nothing's
Let me
happening.
create it and then I'll give you the remote.
Yeah, if you don't mind, that would be great. Please, thank you.
So somebody wrote, Colin, Cuisinart rods are great, a cheaper option, but not as effective are the small wooden blocks from Dollarama.
Yep.
They allow the
Right.
same kind of visualization and counting in different colors. So there's an option.
That is 100% true. I'm just going with the
Thank
brand
you
names
for
here.
that.
I could cut out strips of paper too, and often do.
Mhm.
Okay, so thank you for this. Let's see what we
Thank
got
you,
here.
Jasmine.
It's the highlighter. I haven't used this new one in a while. Nope. There we go. Okay, so one Cuisinart rod might look like this. Wrong. Well, could look something like that. Okay, so it's representing of one. And it would be one color. And it would be, I think, it's a brown color. It would often get separated into 10 spots, 10 equal squares on there. Um, it would take me a while to draw this, but if you can imagine that this thing is just a strip is broken up into 10 equal parts. Okay. Whoa, well, that is a strip that is broken up into 10 equal parts on there with a Cuisinart rod. Okay. Now, different colors would represent different lengths. So that one would probably be brown. I might have one. Uh, Same depth, but not quite as long. And it would be a different color. So the first one might be brown. Uh, Second one might be green, depending on where you buy these things. Okay, depending on where you buy them, there'd be one that might be just two things long, and it would be a different color. And for these kind of things, when I'm talking about Cuisinart rods, like even just jumping into fractions a little bit, I might say, okay, the brown one represents one. How many red ones would it take to completely cover a brown one? Okay, and this bottom one would be the red one, for example. I don't know if there's a color thing on here. Not seeing color. Okay, how many red ones would it take to completely cover a brown one? And they can literally pick them up. Thank you. Whoever put red on there, thank you. You can literally pick them up and put them side by side or put them one on top of the other and would see that it takes 5 red ones to cover one brown one. And I might go on and say, what part of the brown one is covered by one red strip? And I might see, okay, now I'm seeing it's only one of five parts. Then we can start getting into the symbolic, and it would be 1/5. Okay. Like these things are just they're just the ways to actually physically represent different mathematical ideas. I know I'm going through that rather quickly, but somebody had asked about what are Cuisenaire rods, and these are the kind of things that this is what Cuisenaire rods would look like. And there'd be different colors and different lengths. And it doesn't have to just be here's the brown one, here's the red one. How many cover the long one? Could be the intermediate ones. Okay, to start looking at different fractions, different representations, different ratios. But students have them in front of them, they move on. Somebody mentioned you can get a lot of this kind of stuff at the dollar store as well. You're absolutely 100% right. You can get manipulatives at the dollar store. You can cut them out of construction paper, have students cut them out of construction paper. Anything to make that thing hands-on and representative of the mathematics that you're doing at hand. I hope I'm answering the question here. Anybody? Yes, no, maybe, perhaps?
Yes, I think so, Colin. That was very visual too.
Yeah, and students when they're okay, when they're just learning like this, or their math anxiety is high. Okay. I know what it means to have math anxiety. You've seen me when I was 14 years old. Okay. I didn't look like this on purpose. I'm only 28 now. It's just, you can be very anxious about learning math, and it's very, very real. Anything I can do to make it look a little bit different and feel different, feel tactile, I'm going to do that. And you look at you can see my office, all you'll see is boxes of manipulatives and all kinds of stuff that is actually in here. I can do factoring. If you want to do that, we can do that with squares and strips. And all of these kind of things a lot of math can actually happen, but it gives them a concrete representation of what it looks like. My next step would be put it on a piece of paper. Show me what it looks like. The third one would be, well, if I got one red strip to, uh, how many red strips to one brown strip? That would probably get me into ratios. I need 5 red ones to one brown one. 5 to 1. How do I represent that? I'm now getting into ratios. These can lead me in so many different directions. And I look at it very differently that way. Again, sorry, I feel like I'm teaching a class here, but any questions? Okay.
Another 10 minutes, Colin?
Yeah,
No, actually,
because
we can give him more if he wants.
Oh, okay.
well, that's okay for for anybody. I don't mind. The problem I've got is that my screen has gone very big and it's made everything disappear along the bottom. So my share button is gone.
Do you want me to share?
Could you, if you have
Yes.
my,
Yes,
yeah,
I do.
thank you very much.
And I'll give you the remote so that you can change.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, going backwards here. Where's where we were? Because Joanne Rowling, I was talking about Joanne Rowling. None of these people ever gave up, and that's what I want my students to do. Don't give up. Sometimes they even make it a language, but that's a different story. I said I would connect a little bit into financial literacy as well. And like Phil, I have stories. Well, I've only was in academic upgrading for a few years. but I was asked to teach a financial literacy course at Casa Loma to first year engineers. And not millwrights or not the HVAC people, but engineers. What am I going to do with engineers? They're going to be pretty good with math at the best of times. I was actually surprised at how much even the engineers at Casa Loma, their first year engineers, struggled with financial literacy and didn't know where their money was going, didn't know how credit cards worked, didn't know how to, even as we used to say when I was growing up, balance a checkbook. And how many didn't know these things? Even a debit card. How does a debit card work? It's just something they tapped for their Timmies before they came into class. And they didn't bring me a coffee either. So we had to work on that. But where I started with financial literacy, and again, it was a connection because I'd get a lot of students that said, Colin, that's great, but where am I going to use this stuff? I don't know how many people have ever heard students say that in math. It's great, but where am I ever going to use this stuff? One of these places is in financial literacy. Maybe I know I'm coming to close to the conclusion here, but again, I'd like you to take away, what kind of type of learner are you is where we started. We did one on the order of operations. How might you define financial literacy? And then I'll share in a minute how I define financial literacy for me. And I share that with my students.
So we could put some of your definitions in the chat.
Sure, you feel free to put them in the chat. Unfortunately, I won't be able to see them.
So I'm bringing understanding how to manage money. I'll read them as they come along.
Yeah, thank you.
Paying taxes, knowing how to manage your finances, ability to understand financial systems and how they manage your own finances. Financial literacy is understanding the process of spending and saving, budgeting for bills, savings as a standalone, avoiding taxes,
There's a person after my own heart.
finding a
Oh,
job,
finding a job. Very good. Well, these are good.
knowing if somebody or something is a ripoff,
Very good.
saving
Oh,
money again, debt management.
perfect. I think everybody's, I'll move on just because of time here.
Okay.
If it will let me, letting me.
Buying or paying for insurance. Okay.
Okay. There, now it's moving. Okay. All of these things I put under the heading of just management of financial activities. I want to know where my money goes. All these were great examples. I think a lot of these things are connected to what was being put up in the chat there. But to me, it's the management of the financial activities. And people don't know me in this room. I don't think too many people know me in this room. But I've been married a long time. I've been married 38 years now. That's almost 4 decades. I've got 3 sons. Had to manage financial activities. And my wife says, that I am the cheapest man on the face of the planet. But I like to know, I just like to know where the money is going to go. I really do like that. I like to know where the money is going to go. And one of the first problems I will ask people when, depending on the course that I'm teaching, whether it be HVAC or whether it be pre-apprenticeship or millwrights, however this is going to work, would be, it's all freezing. Okay. There we go. Okay, things seem to be moving again. I might ask my students here. So I heard a lot about wages and getting jobs and where do you go? And I even saw in the chat earlier about uh, how are students paid? What are they paid? Uh, I just looked it up. So what is the average starting wage? Now we can go down the road as to what average actually means, but saying it is $21 per hour. I would have my students actually do this kinds of questions right off the bat. Skilled trades workers work on average about 44 hours per week. And I asked them, how much will you make in 1 week? How much will you make in 1 year? For us here, us as teachers and educators, that's going to be a relatively straightforward question. I won't ask you to do that, but I will ask, this is probably one of the places where I will ask my students to do this and hand it in to me, not just the $21 per hour, but I do want to see what they do with those calculations. See how they work out those calculations. Well, starting in the skilled trades, I might make about $924 per week and just over $48,000 per year. Okay. I'll ask them to hand that in to me. I heard as well taxes when we were talking about financial literacy. I see an ASL interpreter smiling about taxes. We all have to pay them. And at $48,000 a year, here's what you will have to pay. And it surprised me with engineering students. They didn't realize this. This is what you will pay. And I will ask students to work this out. Okay, now this gives me a chance to see what they know about percentages. I have to go back to the Cuisinart rods, connect ratios and percentages. It's okay. But I'm going to go and do some work with percentages. I'm doing the calculations. I know you'll get this, so you'll be able to see the calculations here. Okay, I'm asking them to do this. Where does your money go? I made $924 per week. What am I actually taking home? Of the $924, I'm only taking home $650. And that's what I get to use to do what everybody else says is like budgeting. I got to pay my rent. I've got to buy food, car insurance, whatever it happens to be. I need to do that on the $650. Okay, now I tend to take time out here and just say to students, are you surprised? And the only reason I say that is because the engineers surprised me. They weren't aware. that they had to do this kind of thing. Connecting back into that financial literacy. And it's the overall of where am I going to use this anyway? It's great for me to learn this math, but where am I going to use it in my real life? Here you go. Here's a place you're going to use it. You're going to make money. You're going to, sorry, just as an aside here, but I often tell my students too that when they get paid, they're actually the fourth person to get money. And I think that's the same way for everybody in this room. You're at best the fourth person to get money. As you get paid, then income tax gets it before you do. Employment insurance gets it before you do. Canada Pension gets it before you do, and then you get what's left. It's always surprising for students. Illuminating, but surprising. And I like to say, are you surprised by this amount? And tell me why you are. Okay, so for me, when it comes to to personal finance, the math just helps students understand where the money goes, especially early on when they're just starting to earn it. It's so easy to spend it. And with those cards that we've got today, those debit cards and credit cards, I've spent a fair amount of time talking with students about how to be very careful. I do it with my sons as well. I mentioned I have three. With each of my three sons. Be careful, and some of the tricks and techniques to help them be careful. Okay, I think I've gone a little bit over time here, and I apologize for that. But if anybody's got any questions, please feel free. I think we might be in a Q&A period here.
Thank you. That's a good segue. We're going to be going into our Q&A. There will be a poll, and Breen will put it up momentarily. So don't leave without doing the poll, just a reminder to everybody. So call in people before Jasmine. Jasmine has a question about in the chat. This should be something, the financial literacy should be something that should be taught at the high school level.
Okay. I can wax poetic about that if you like. But basically, I would say yes. It is actually taught at the high school level. Unfortunately, the post-secondary institutions do not give it the credit that it deserves. So when you apply into a post-secondary institution, if you've got a personal finance course that you took, doesn't really count towards the math credit as much as advanced functions or calculus would. It doesn't get the respect that it actually deserves, from my opinion, on this. And I heard Barb say it earlier too, when she was on, that it might say grade 10 math is the basic that you need. But if somebody with grade 10 math is competing with somebody that's got grade 12 math for one spot, you know where they're going to go. So sorry, I don't know who asked that or whether it was Jasmine that asked that question, but from what I've seen, it just doesn't get the respect it deserves, but it is in the high schools. It's not a required course.
Jasmine, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you so much for all of you, but in particular, Colin, about math. I just wanted to ask, do you actually think we should be starting this in elementary school? I mean, there are a lot of banks and others that are starting kids out with accounts, or I don't know if you've heard of MyDough with RBC. It's giving them $25 to get to work with and try to increase. And I'm just wondering, like, do you think this is a good age? I personally believe it's a good age to get kids thinking about money before you get all the other stuff, you know, as adults, as you grow, before you get so fixated on A, B, or C.
Yeah, you're asking an opinion, and I will give my opinion. Uh, I can't say I'm speaking for George Brown or MTML or anybody else, so this is just my opinion, if that's okay, on this. But I agree with you, yes. And in fact, from financial literacy, yeah, I think my grade three students are quite capable of working with a dollar sign and working with money. And it makes it great manipulative too, like nickels, dimes, quarters, rounding to fives, rounding to hundreds, whatever, rounding to tens. It makes fabulous, fabulous manipulative to work with in the classroom. I think it's great that and think they should be doing that probably maybe even earlier, but in grade three, for sure, you could start working in financial literacy into the classroom. Uh, I also think too, just to add to that, and again, it's my own opinion, there's a lot of research going on at this point too that preschoolers are quite numerate. Uh, and if we're taking kids out and we're going shopping, for example, I used to do this with my kids, is we need cornflakes, go get the big bucks. So I'm starting to get sizes and relationships into them as well. Set the table, one fork, two spoons kind of thing. Getting that one to one, many to one correspondence going. I think we should be going and helping students, helping children do math earlier. But to go back and answer your question, should they be doing it in elementary school? I believe 100% yes.
Thank you, Colin. So we're going to open it up to all the facilitators Q&A if you had some past questions or that you didn't have a moment. So we have Patricia back and Philip are back, and Ambreen is going to just
I
speak.
just have a question for
Mhm.
everyone. Great presentations. Thank you, everyone. Uh, I always think about community-based programs because when I was teaching in at a community-based program, teaching numeracy and financial literacy was a challenge because we didn't know at what level. So I do understand, Patricia, you talked about structured reading, how you can, initially do that. And I listened to Philip. I thought that was more college level. If I'm working in a community-based program, as an instructor, what would you three suggest or give tips as what should I be doing to help prepare my learners going to, let's say, a pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship program?
Since I've been talking, I can start on that. And I'm not sure who asked the question, but from my
Sorry, this
perspective,
was Umbreen.
oh, okay. Sorry, my screen's gotten very big, so I might have to just jump out and jump back in. But for me, it's uh, doing the same things I was talking about here. The more we can make our students numerate from a math perspective, the better off they're going to be. The more comfortable they are with numbers, the better off they're going to be. And so in the trades, you do a fair amount. When I look at some of the pre-apprentice high school programs across the country, they're kind of heavy on measurement, like perimeter, surface area, volume, and rather heavy on trigonometry as well. And if students don't have a basics in fractions, ratios, numeracy, trigonometry is going to be an absolute mystery. The more they can come into the program very confident with their own mathematical skills, the more success I have seen them have.
I was going to answer your question too, Ambreen. I think a lot of what I got from Philip's presentation, I think it kind of fit nicely with my strategies. And the big thing is that he said meeting learners where they're at, right? And that to me is number one. Um, and now I'm trying to bring it back to the question you asked, but for me, the beauty of working with adult learners was that they did come with stuff. Um, Especially when I compare my time to teaching kids in grade 1 and 2. So the adults came with a lot more stuff. and being able to create uh, materials and activities where those learners are at. And so some of the strategies I talked about may not be appropriate or hard enough. They might have to be adjusted, but I think in there, there's that middle ground where once you get to know your learners and you know where they're at, then you can adjust things. And that sounded like a very generic answer, but I hope it kind of made a little bit of sense.
Yes.
Um, can I just ask, Ambreen, are you saying maybe you could be more specific a bit about
Okay.
what you mean by community based? Like, what are you
Community
envisioning?
based is not school board or college sector, right? Community based is where there's more one-to-one tutoring or smaller groups. So I know at that level, and I've seen instructors, they're scared of even teaching, preparing, not preparing, but, and I won't say scared is a strong word, but they're hesitant on, or they may not know what level do we prepare learners if they are going into skilled trades. So math is a big thing. I mean, numeracy, right? And even when you were talking about your experience, Philip, it was more about how you managed or you created curriculum at that level.
Mhm.
In order for a learner to reach that level, how can instructors help them at that level? Just, yeah.
So just I'll ask one little follow-up question. So you're asking in a situation, would it be where it's more like a drop-in casual setting that it's not a specified class every day, but it's you're sort of working with people on their schedule, or are we
Yes.
talk? Okay.
Yeah, usually community based are once a week, right? Not like a classroom.
Okay. I will say that something that you hear as an arts-based person, I've worked with teachers trying to inform their approach with the arts in math, science, history, French. Um, and one of the number one things you hear is, "Oh, arts won't work here. I can't do it here." It to me, it's like saying, "Oh, I can't use hand gestures." If you accept arts as an aptitude or as an intelligence that we all have, which, by the way, we all do, um, there is no setting in which it's not appropriate. So I would say, from an arts informed perspective, my whole thing would be to frame whatever it is I want to help the learner achieve from some embodied experiential approach rather than, oh, let's take this 28-year-old mimeographed worksheet that nobody understands how it connects to anything. Let's work on that. No, let's start where you are. What is it you're worried about? Where do you come from? There's two Collins. That's really weird. Um, so yeah, I would say whether it's one-on-one, it's informal, whatever, you can still come at it from a perspective of yes, student-centered, but also engaging, immersive, experiential. And I have found that this approach specifically within the apprenticeship frame is very powerful. That's been my experience. Oh, yeah, I just wanted one little quick thing, a little interruption of expectation. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Belbin group skills. It's kind of been monetized, but it's based on years and years of research on group work. And they identified three categories. And it's basically heart, head, and hands.
Yeah.
You're a thinker, you're a connector. Much to my surprise, consistently in my pre-apprenticeship programs, the predominant type has been heart. You would not expect that. especially among millwrights, But um, I love that. It interrupts this idea that we know who goes into the trades and why. Increasingly, it's an area that, I mean, I counsel people, even if that's not really in their radar. I'm like, have you thought about the trades? So we're getting people from all over, and I think make assumptions about those learners at your peril, because you'll miss a lot of what's going on in your classroom.
Right.
That's my spiel.
One thing I didn't discuss today, because I wasn't sure if it was relevant, but based on your question, Ambreen, um, I didn't talk about assessments that I did with my learners. And I did a simple reading assessment called, just using adult sight words, just to provide a baseline for me, the instructor, and also a quick phonics screener to identify if there were any gaps in their phonemic phonological awareness. Because if there was, then I could deal with that before I took them to the next step where we're going to decoding. If they don't know what, a long O sounds like or a short E, then we need to work on that. So I don't know if that's something that would be useful for me to stick into the resource guide. If people want to take a look at. They're both easy to administer, and Breen has seen them in person being administered. Doesn't take a lot of time, but it does give you a nice baseline for your learners and a nice place to start so that it's not too hard for them and it's not too easy. And then any gaps in their phonological awareness. So I'm happy to add links to that in the guide.
Thank you.
We do have and maybe Barb, I don't know if you're still behind the scenes there. Trade specific vocabulary. Is there a place that we could quickly check and as a resource? Website. If we don't have that right off the top of our heads, if we can.
Yes, Georgina,
or Barb,
I was
thank you.
just posting a couple things in the chat. The Quill task-based learning activities, which I see Jim also posted, is helpful. And although it takes a little bit of time to look through the items on the LBS resources forum that were created with the Skills for Success funding, some of those under the apprenticeship section do have some vocabulary activities in them.
Perfect. Wow. Great presentations. Any further questions or comments? We'll be putting up the poll. Is everybody able to see the poll in front of them? So this is very helpful for us when we're doing our future deliverables on PD.
The poll came and disappeared.
Even I saw on the screen and then it disappeared.
Now?
Yes, Georgina, it came and it disappeared.
So now can you see it?
No.
No.
No?
No, it's not there.
There we go.
Yeah.
There it is.
Actually, I already have ideas for next year as well. So I'm going to get contacting
There are
Colin
3 questions. Make sure that you scroll down.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, MTML. And to all the presenters.
Thank you, Gabby.
Thanks,
Very
everyone.
good
It was great to be here
Very
today.
important information. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you to our
And
presenters.
Philip and Colin,
to
it's great
our
to see you again.
interpreters.
Yeah, good seeing you, Barb. Thanks, everybody. It was great.
Barb.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Georgina and Breen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And
Great
interpreters. Thank you for being
Yes.
patient with our varied tempo of speech.
Yes, thank you, Kate and Emily.
I think, Georgina, you still got me hooked up into
It was a pleasure.
something that's not in my control.
Oh, Ambreen, you mean your screen, Colin?
My screen, yes.
You
I
have
think
two
I'm sharing
screens?
your screen.
No.
Um,
Not
no,
anymore.
not us. Not
Okay.
on our end.
Just
You'll
weird.
just have to escape, probably, Colin.
Yeah, maybe. If I lose everybody, I will come back.
Okay.
Yeah.